again, everyone, and welcome back to another speed build. Now, when people think of a cemetery, it seems like the initial thought is this dark, eerie place. Lots of gray, black, maybe some untended plants. So I wanted to do, well, the opposite. So when I first came up with the idea for this build, I had in my head this vision of a very bright, white, pristine cemetery. Lots of pathing, very sculpted landscaping. Now the Life and Death expansion pack did come with some pretty white and bright colorways. So I started on the one thing that I find hardest when making lots, which is the building. For this build, I wanted everything to be very symmetrical. So even if the exterior of the building seemed very classic in style, I wanted the feel to be a bit more modern, almost like it was a refurbished building. Now, after using this pack for two totally different styles of cemetery lots, I feel like Life and Death has some really nice build and buy components. You can mix and match both the classic and modern styles in this pack, yet all the items still work really well together. So after getting that initial building shape done, I moved on to the exterior and landscaping. In some of the official gameplay screenshots for the Life and Death expansion pack, some of the builds had these raised mausoleums on platforms. I really wanted to include that just to add a bit more emphasis to them. In total, this lot has 10 grave sites and 4 mausoleums. I actually wanted to use it for my Not So Berry challenge. I think it'll be kind of cool for all the Sims to be in one place, and this can totally still work in regular Legacy gameplay as well. Now, these dogwood trees that came with the Cats and Dogs expansion pack pretty much inspired this whole build for me. I love these trees, but I actually find them hard to use in landscaping a lot of the time. I wanted to add a bit more privacy or distinction between each grave site, but because there were 5 grave sites on each side, I wasn't able to make them even with just the fences in between. So I ended up using these white flowers in between each grave site, which I think turned out really nice. Now, these side portions of the lot between the mausoleums, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with them. I actually ended up putting the playground equipment that came with this pack. I noticed that it came in some really interesting green metal swatches that ended up matching the fence, and so I figured that children should probably have something to do for fun if they come here onto the lot. So now that I have the initial base of the exterior items and landscaping, I'm going in and around to see if I can add some of the decorative and other funeral items, like those funeral cannons that came with the pack. Moving on to the interior, I haven't played a funeral event as of uploading this, which is why I wanted to use them in my Not So Berry Rebirth challenge just to experience it for the first time. I wasn't quite sure how the layout should be or what items you need for the event, so I added a variety of different items just in case. This definitely started out as a more classic interior style, but really transformed into a modern style as I furnished, which is interesting because I didn't necessarily like the modern furniture items when I first checked out the build and buy in this pack. So I wanted to raise the funeral altar, I guess higher than the speech podium. So I ended up putting another platform, but I feel like adding that extra platform made a big difference in how the build looked on the interior. I originally was thinking of putting dining tables in the central area, but I didn't really like how it looked in the space. The modern end table that came with this pack also had that pale purple colored tabletop, so I wanted to accent that with some simple chairs. The Sims can eat just fine without a table. So now that I have a lot of the base parts of the build's interior and exterior down, I'm going through a lot of the final touches, adding different lights, plants, outdoor accessories that came with the pack. I also wanted to make sure your Sims could eat, drink, take care of all of their basic needs, so I added a buffet table and the globe bar into this building as well. I ended up liking how the globe bar added some darker wood tones, which I also ended up adding into the grandfather clock there. Now this is actually the next day here in the speed build. I often do that with my builds. I'll sleep on it and then look at it again in the morning. Sometimes I'll have a fresh perspective and, of course, more patience. And here I am changing the orientation of the bathrooms. I originally had 2 large windows in the bathrooms, but I felt that was a bit too much windows in a bathroom. I also decided on using these base game curtains. They kind of have a light blue, purple kind of swatch, which I felt looked really good with the color scheme that I had going on in here. And here, finally, I commit to the playground equipment. I ran around and did some of the terrain paint. I'm pretty particular with my terrain paint. I don't know, it's just something I spend a lot of time on. And here I'm going around and finishing up some final touches, moving the torches, changing the metal fencing, adding more llama benches around the dogwood trees, and adjusting some final paintings and swatches before we move into the final screenshots. So this lot is in Brindleton Bay, so it was a little overcast in the game when I took the screenshots, unfortunately, but what can you do? This is the entrance, which I think looks absolutely stunning with the dogwood trees. This was the vibes that I was envisioning when I first thought of this build. It just looks so peaceful and tranquil, which I think is usually not the approach people might go for when they initially think of a cemetery build. Mortimer happened to be visiting the cemetery at the moment, so here he is among the grave sites. I really liked the look of the raised mausoleums and how the planter dividers ended up turning out between all the graves. Here is a look at the interior of the build and a closer look at the altar area. I think the skylight, especially during a brighter day, would be so pretty. Here's the opposite side of the build, facing the entryway. I love the wall art that came with this pack. Every swatch of them is so cool, and all the tarot card art is amazing. And with that, that is the completed cemetery build. Now, I did build a dark cemetery build when Life and Death first came out, which you can find on the gallery under my username. I usually leave my username for the Sims 4 gallery in the description of my videos if you ever want to download anything I might post here on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.